Turned out that it was 9/11, and wow, I just feel so blown away and blessed by that, to be here speaking on the 15-year anniversary. Now, I'd like to talk about the thorn of this, and how this thorn that gets caught, you know, when we walk in the woods and we're walking along and we get that thorn somehow in our foot. Actually, they're somewhere around these tiny little thorns. You ever get them in your foot somehow? Or in your hand, and it just sticks to you, and you can't like get it off? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. I don't know what they are, but they're thorns. What are they? Stickers. They're stickers. Well, they hurt. Hurt like a mother, right? And it's very hard to get them out. There's a beautiful new book that we're doing, starting a study group at the Darshan Center, and it's called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And there's a whole chapter there on thorns, and how to remove the thorn, or really just let the thorn be, and then recognize the pain of the thorn, and the thorn will come out. Well, 9/11 is a thorn for me. I have a lot of thorns, but we don't have enough time. I only have 15 minutes to talk about all the thorns that I have from my childhood, you know, from disembodiment and injuries of others. And I love the land of I am. Wow, what synchronicity! You know, Reverend Tim and I didn't talk about what I was going to do necessarily, specifically, or anything. And so the I am, the land of I am, was the healing meditation I wanted to do, which is Om Soham, which is Sanskrit for I am. Amazing, right? No coincidences, only God incidences. I believe that. So 9/11 is a thorn for me. I was there that day. As many of you have heard the story, and I won't bore you with it, but I was a lieutenant in the NYPD, and Chris and I were on our way. Actually, I was teaching at John Jay College at the time, and I was teaching a crisis intervention class. And at 8:45, 8:45 in the morning, when we came out of the Battery Tunnel, we stood at this light where there's always a lot of traffic. And we both kind of looked up at the same time, and there was this glitter that was coming down. And I was like, what's that glitter? You see all that glitter? And the first plane had just hit. The first tower. And the events then unfolded from that point forward. Because of my PhD in social work, because I worked for community affairs, because I had literally maybe a few months before that had helped with a police officer suicide at the police academy. He had committed suicide in the auditorium in front of all of the police recruits. And we had just finished doing a debriefing, so my chief knew that I was the crisis intervention specialist, if you will. And so I found myself in 9/11 on that day, the day that followed, the day that followed, and the day that followed, and the weeks that followed, and the months that followed, being the coordinator for the interagency response, the mental health response for the families specifically. There was a moment in this mass of people, mass. Chris calls it a river, a sea of people, human beings who had come earnestly wanting to find their loved one, with pictures and toothbrushes, and thousands of people who wrapped around the Bellevue morgue. There was a big auditorium, and we were taking what was called VIP reports, and getting information about the lost loved one, and we were talking to people, and listening to people. We weren't talking, we were listening, and they were crying, and they had hope that maybe their loved one would be found, and could we do something, and how could we help them, and suddenly, Chris and I were talking about this in the car ride here, you know, the Anahata chakra. The Anahata chakra was wide open, blown open, you know, heartbroken, but Anahata chakra open. There was a moment, and I can't tell you which day of the week it was because it was all a blur, and it was 14-hour tours, and I would come home at night and collapse in Chris's arms and just sob. I would sob because my heart was breaking for these people. My heart was breaking for me. My city, my police department, fire department, many people were killed. The devastation, the upheaval, our country, just the whole 9 yards, you know. The anti-Muslim sentiment, which just always irked me. It always, and I wasn't an interfaith minister yet, but I always felt obligated to stand up for the Muslim, spiritual, loving person. That was not what this was about. Terrorists, violent terrorists hijacked a whole entire religion. Just as terrorists have hijacked Christianity, just as terrorists have hijacked other religions in the name of fill in the blank. We know as mystical, spiritual beings, metaphysicians, that's a conundrum. That's a paradox. It's a contradiction in terms. It's not real. You can't be loving God and knowing God and being God and doing that. Like we know. So that's neither here nor there. But my heart was broken, and I received a very big thorn from 9/11. And Michael Singer talks about how the thorn can transform. And I also thought about how the crown of thorns, Jesus wears this crown of thorns. Is there symbolism in that? Is there significance in that? I think there is. I don't think it's an accident. I don't think that it's random that we have this symbol of a thorn. And it makes you think about the crucifixion. And it makes you think about going to Calvary and these images that we weren't there, but maybe some of us were, and some of us believe in past lives, and so maybe it is something about that. But we know that there's this terrible crisis of that, this tragedy. I mean, can you imagine the family? We talk about the families of 9/11, right? Who are so dear to me, who I took on as my own family, and I let a lot of them in. And a lot of them still with me. And there was some psychological damage and some emotional damage that happened to me as a result of letting it in. But the transformation. Because it's not just the crucifixion, right? It's not just, on the mountain here of Calvary, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and John, and their whole world has stopped. The day the music died, right? The whole world stops. Everything is forever changed after something like this. After the crucifixion, after 9/11, after the loss of your loved one, after the abuse, after the person, leaves you in a relationship, after you lose your job, after your house burns down. Whatever the thorn is, it's almost not important, like what the story is. Although some of our stories, we hold on to them. We tell them, and every time we tell them, we push the thorn in. That hurts, stop, don't. I can't watch, a week or two leading up to 9/11, there's all of the real 9/11, inside 9/11, it's a thorn. It's a thorn for me. I can't. I have to try to remove myself, right? But don't you find that no matter how you try to avoid somebody hitting your thorn, they always hit the thorn anyway? It's like a sideways hit. And it's just like, I tried to avoid that, but that disturbed me anyway. How did that happen? Michael Singer talks about allowing the thorn to be there. Recognizing the pain of the thorn. Don't hide from the pain of it. The pain is the pain, but you're not the pain. You're not the fear. You're not the disturbance. You are in the land of I am. You are always in that Satchitananda, not your mind. Your mind, forget your mind. Oh my God. Boy, we want to get out of our mind. We don't want to be in the mind. The mind is a terrible place to be. It's a very bad neighborhood for some of us. I know it is for me. I can't be in there unsupervised. It's bad. Bad place. Need protection. Oh my God. The mind, the emotion, the psychological, the psyche, all of that is, it's such a betrayer. But when I go into the higher seat of consciousness, Michael Singer talks about, and this is what the Master Jesus was saying. There's no difference here. There's no different teaching here. Jesus is elevated up on the cross. It's a higher seat of consciousness. The ego is killed. The ego is crucified. We put all of this emphasis on these buildings, on these structures. But the people who resided in them, who died inside of them, have much more value than the structure. Right? So the ego is the structure. The ego has to come down. It has to fall. The higher seat of consciousness is where I need to be. So when I go to the higher seat of consciousness, guess what? Resurrection. But Jesus also taught us about surrendering. He taught us about accepting. I mean, in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? I don't know how many Gardens of Gethsemane experiences you all have had, but I have had several, and 9/11 has been one of them. Oh no, let this not be true. Please let this cup pass. Not my will, but yours. But just so you know, I want you to know what my will is, just in case. Can I help you with this? Your will, I believe, I do. You always show me. God is always showing me and always carrying me through everything. I am God. I am that. I cannot be disturbed. I cannot be destroyed. It's my mind. It's a terrible thing to waste. And it's a terrible thing to have. So when I recognize that, and when I realize that, and I elevate the consciousness, and I enter into that place of resurrection, it's transformative. So the thorn, it's still there after 15 years. I'm not going to lie to you, I almost choked on the song. I have a much better voice than I actually showed you up here, really. Because I was too emotional about it. I can't help it, it's a thorn. But I honor the thorn, and I allow it. And Swami Jyotirmayananda, he talks about taking adversity and turning it into austerity. So what if, and this is going to blow your mind, and I hope I believe it, what if 9/11 was a gift? What if it was a gift? What if it was the opportunity for us to be loved, to be one, to be connected, to care about each other, to have our anahata chakras open up, and break our hearts? What if that was the gift? And how blessed were we to be a part of witnessing that? That's the joy, and like a splinter that you get, that just, if you dig at it, if you're like me and you're OCD, you're gonna dig at it until you chop your finger off. I get the splinter, I gotta chop my, let me chop my whole arm off. But if you allow the splinter, it will find its way out. Just open hands. There's no coincidence that the crucifixion and Jesus' symbol, and I know for some the cross has some stuff, some thorns, their own thorns. But is it not an open hand falling back, higher seat of consciousness? Is it not a transformation? Is it not a resurrection? And it's all about shifting our consciousness to the higher realm. Namaste.